but it is time to hit social media for our hashtag segment. For that, we'd like to welcome in Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, and we have Jenny Horn, Fast Market contributor, back with us. We're kind of be talking a little bit of FANG here with the Apple Card.
Financials, yeah. So we're talking about the Apple Card, and I read some reviews this morning of people that have the Apple Card, which were, of course, very interesting. It seems like this card promotes using Apple Pay, but it also, there's no physical number on this card, so people like the aesthetic of the card. I mean, very bizarre things people really like about this card. Then, of course, there's things people really don't like about this card. So, Andy, I'm really curious to see what your data says about the Apple Card.
Yeah, when we looked into this, what we did is look for mentions that suggest people are getting their card for the first time, applying for the card, that sort of thing. In other words, indications that people are beginning to use the actual physical Apple Card or have applied for it to get it in the mail. And what we saw when we looked into that is there was a lot of hype around that when they first announced the Apple Card back in, I think it was either March or early April of 2019. And then when it was actually released, pretty good uptick, I would say. But really the follow through has not been maybe what we would expect from an Apple product, in terms of the actual card itself. Now, on the flip side, what we have seen is probably what's in Apple's best interest anyway, and that is a considerable uptick in the number of people talking about actually using the Apple Pay technology in some way or another. And I think that's the whole point for Apple, is to get more and more people using Apple Pay, and the card is kind of an element in that strategy. But our data on actual Apple Pay usage is up 44% year over year. It's really starting to catch on. It's in 70% of retail locations, and people are just starting to figure out how to use it instead of Venmo, how to use it instead of their debit card or credit card, and it seems to be taking off nicely for Apple.
So hey, Andy, it's JJ. How are you, pal? Handsome alert. Good. Andy Swan on today. With that said, do you think it relates to everything else with Apple? Because at the end of the day, doesn't it also kind of relate back to more phone usage? So could you just say that Apple has a tough time releasing products that are sort of individual, but somehow they always tie back to the phone and do help their phone usage? And I think that part gets underrated.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's their whole strategy here. I think, essentially Goldman backing this card, I think, I don't know how great that's going to be for Goldman, because this is not, what we're looking at here, I don't think is extremely impressive numbers for the Apple Card in terms of adoption. But what it's done is really kickstarted conversations around Apple Pay. And like you said, using the phone for more and more of your daily life is, that is Apple's game plan. And them getting a little bit of transaction fee on every dollar that goes through those systems, and holding the cash in their account as it changes hands between their users, that's all good for Apple. And so I think that you're absolutely right. The phone is the center point of people's lives, and Apple's making it more and more powerful every day.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. It's just getting the people to use their phones more, and it's getting people to talk about Apple more, whether it's good or bad. I mean, people were talking about Apple in relation to the Apple Card. So our first tweet says, I applied for the Apple credit card and now I got it, so now I should buy AirPods, right? I've been wanting them for so long, so now it's okay, right? So I'm just curious, because it seems like with an Apple Card, it just increases brand loyalty here. It doesn't necessarily matter whether people are using the card so much, but they are talking about the brand itself, like you just mentioned. So it does increase that brand loyalty, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what's cooler? To some people, there's nothing cooler than walking into the Apple store to buy, AirPods with your Apple credit card. And I think you're right. It does build brand loyalty. It's another thing that's in your wallet, physical possession, that has that Apple logo on it, that has a cool usage features. And so I think you're absolutely right. It does build some brand loyalty, and like JJ said, it just brings people back into the whole platform over and over again.
But you also mentioned you're not sure exactly how much this does for Goldman, which is exactly what my next tweet is about, from Daniel Roberts, who says, TV ad, this is the Apple Card, a new kind of credit card created by Apple, not a bank. Okay, so we'll just pretend Goldman Sachs isn't behind this. So this is actually kind of interesting, because it seems like it actually was like more of a PR stunt by Apple to say this is created by Apple, not a bank. Mm-hmm. But then Goldman is the brains behind it. So I mean, how do you justify that? If I were Goldman, I'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah, Andy, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but I think the big piece of this is the fact that, Goldman's not getting any brand loyalty out of this as they're trying to move into this space. It is all Apple, and although it says Goldman Sachs on the physical card, to your point, there isn't really any incentive to use that physical card. It's all to use the Apple Pay. You can't even keep the card next to other credit cards. You can't keep it in denim. So there's really all these kind of anti-incentives to use the physical card. It's all to drive use towards Apple Pay, which is going to benefit Apple in the long term.
Yeah, I think historically speaking, Goldman Sachs has been just fine with kind of being in the shadows and overlooked a little bit and just kind of collecting all the money and all the interest and all the fees. Apple's going to be the one that's brand front and center in anything that they do. That's just the way it is. I do think Goldman can, turn this into a foray into the retail sector, as you're talking about, over time. And a partnership with Apple is a pretty good place to start.
All right, Andy, we got to leave it there. I think we're going to be touching base with you guys on Friday with some more Apple information to give us a little bit of a sneak peek. So we'll look forward to that as well. But thanks for joining us this morning, and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. You too.